Go back to the Triple Double Watch, guys. We are back to recap the 2022 NBA Draft. And before we get started, we are oh so close to 50 subscribers. So if you're watching this and you're not subscribed, hit that for us. If you got a few friends that you think like NBA, MLB content, tell them about us. Get us to 50 real quick. We appreciate it. So to get started, we kind of had a little bit of a shocker already, and the Orlando Magic drafted Paolo Banquero #1.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a shocker. The odds going into the draft were kind of back and forth, him and Jabari Smith. But it was a little bit of a shocker to some, but I definitely feel like he's the most ready for the NBA, coming out of Duke. He's probably a little bit of a better fit than the other two, I think, for that team. But it'll be interesting to see going forward, how that pans out for him, that decision.
Yeah, for sure. So, there was a big three there between Paolo Banquero, Chet Holmgren, and Jabari Smith. Those were the consensus top three picks in some order. Chet wasn't a great fit on this Magic team with Wendell Carter. Mo Bamba's still kind of lingering around. They'll probably sign him to some type of extension. So they were looking for more of a four, and it came down to Paolo or Jabari. You go back to the end of the college tournament, and a lot of people thought Paolo and Chet were the clear 1 and 2, and Jabari was 3. And then after combine and some workouts, they thought Jabari had moved himself all the way to 1. And so going into draft night, they thought it would be Jabari 1. But the Magic liked Paolo. I think I personally like Paolo a little bit better, but can't go wrong there. So then Oklahoma City Thunder were drafting second, and they did take Chet Holmgren. He'll be a pretty good fit on that team. They've been needing the center for a long time. So
yep, definitely a good. They seem to be set on him from the jump. Especially with him not fitting with the Magic, seemed like they had their guy at 2. But I would say the team with the best scenario here was the Rockets at 3. You ended up with a lot of people think should have been the #1 pick in Jabari Smith out of Auburn.
Exactly, and it's stress-free draft night for the Rockets. You can't go wrong. Somebody's going to fall to you at 3 that you like. And if it doesn't pan out in a couple years, no one's going to fault you. Everybody would have taken that pick here. You had no choice in it. So I think I kind of like the fit, too, with Jalen Green, maybe more than Paolo even. Paolo's not much of a shooter. Jabari has a really nice shot to him. Could be a really good pick-and-roll and pick-and-pop guy with Jalen Green. Create his own shot some. Late game will run to 5 for him probably. So definitely a good pick for him.
Yep, for sure. And then at 4, the Kings got Keegan Murray from Iowa. Definitely slides in their lineup a lot better than Jaden Ivey, who was another guy that was available here at 4. But I think Keegan Murray's a better fit for him.
Keegan Murray, about a 6'8" forward, big body, can do a little bit of everything. Really good fit for the Kings. There's some speculation they might trade the pick. I'm glad they didn't. I don't know what type of packages they would have got that would help them now and in the long term. And Keegan Murray does both for him. He'll be a contributor day 1. I think he's still got room to grow, too. Could be a really nice fit with De'Aaron Fox and even Sabonis. Then that might be a really nice 5 and 4, Sabonis and Murray.
Yeah, definitely could be.
Detroit Pistons drafted 5 then. Another case scenario, kind of just looking best player available. And Jaden Ivey's still on the board, and it was an easy pick for him, really.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a very electric backcourt, him and Cade. They also have Killian Hayes still there. But Jaden, he's coming in with some high comps. He's got Ja Morant being compared to Ja, and he's friends with Ja. So it's going to be interesting to see how he fits in with them. I think it's going to be a very fun team to watch going forward.
Yeah, Pistons had a really nice draft. We'll talk about them later. They're probably one of the winners of the draft.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a fun team. They are definitely going to be shooting for at least a play-in next year to grow as a team. I think a lineup of Cade, Jaden Ivey, and Killian Hayes will be interesting. It'll definitely be ran at some point. They're all big enough bodies to be able to guard wings. Whoever they decide will guard them.
Plus you got Sadiq Bey as well.
Yep. So the Pistons have a little bit of future going. They're looking bright. Indiana Pacers drafting 6, another pick that was speculated to maybe traded,
Yeah.
but ended up not. I think another good choice, sticking at 6 here, and they ended up drafting Benedict Mathurin.
Yeah, it's definitely. Um, this is where the draft kind of went to. It was just a fit type thing. After that top five, talent wise, I think there's a little bit of a drop down, or like for sure talent, but there's a lot of upside with these guys coming up. The 6 through 10 range, and would it be interesting to see if how he fits in. Indiana's in this deep rebuild, but they do have some pieces like Halliburton still that he can fit around. So
Yeah, the Pacers are in a weird spot in general. Miles Turner's been in trade talks for 2+ years now. Ogden, they couldn't trade this year. They might in the future. EJ Warren's supposed to come back from a foot surgery. They have pieces to be a solid team in the East, but they have a lot of pieces that can get injured easily, that can already take a downhill turn. But then they have some young guys like Tyrese Halliburton and others that are promising. So it's going to be a really interesting season for the Pacers. I think they got to make a decision at some point this year whether they're going to, because at some point you can't middle around the 8th seed forever,
yeah,
But Benedict Mathurin is a good fit for this team. A taller guard, can definitely run with Halliburton. Can even slide to your 1 at times if need be. So, good pick for
yeah,
sure.
definitely. I feel like they're gonna probably right around the trade deadline if they're sitting around that play in. I don't know if they keep it going or not, but it'll be interesting.
This
And
Miles Turner is going to be very valuable at a trade
yeah,
deadline. So it might
definitely.
be finally time to pull the trigger if they don't.
Yep.
If they have a chance.
And at 7, one of my favorite picks of the draft, Shaden Sharp went to the Blazers. A very, very electric player, personally, as seeing him in person. But he's a little bit of a wild card, not playing in college at all. So it was an interesting. It was interesting to see where he fell. So
This is the point in the draft where you have a lot of guys unproven in the sense that they just haven't got a lot of high level ball in. Um, Later in the draft, you'll see more guys from overseas as we get into it, more guys from the G League and stuff like that. So it's hard to gauge some of these guys, but Shaden Sharp, like you said, has all the potential in the world here. The taller guard too, so it's kind of a CJ filler. But it could be better defensively. It could be more explosive going to the rim, which would help Dame out too. So, if he progresses quickly in the next 1 to 2 years, the Blazers could get right back into Western Conference contention. Just traded for Jeremy Grant before draft night. He's a really good fit at the 4 for him. So, once again, Shaden Sharp, probably the best guy on the board at this spot, and they had to snag, and they did. So,
yeah, I think an interesting lineup with them. They could run Dame, Simons, Shaden, Grant, and Nurkic, and I feel like that's a contending playoff team there.
and even Josh Hart fills in at any of those spots too, if
Yeah.
need be. Josh Hart can run the 4 if you really want to run small. Can run the 2 if you want to run really big. So he gives them a lot of versatility too. So and they have a little bit of cap space going into free agency. So still could find some wing if they want to out there. So the New Orleans Pelicans were drafting number 8. Good spot for them here, and they went with Dyson Daniels out of the G League. Played his 1 season in the G League last year. Pretty good. Showed a lot of potential. Interesting spot for the Pelicans because they kind of solidified their starting 5 last year. So they're kind of looking best player available. They like this pick for the fact that it's kind of a lot of offense, which they needed from their guards. So they might move on from Devontae Graham and stuff like that. So what do you think about it?
Yeah, it's interesting. He's like you mentioned, they pretty much have their 5, so he's going to be a guy off the bench. But I think he's more of a driver as of right now, so it'll be interesting to see how that fits in with them. They do have CJ, so it's kind of a balance for CJ and him. But it was an interesting pick. Probably one of the best available there too. So fit and best available at that point probably. So it's definitely a good pick for them. And then after that, the Spurs, I believe, right? Yeah, the Spurs at 9 took Jeremy Sohan out of Baylor.
Yeah, a guy that has potential off the board here, and Spurs are still pretty much in rebuild mode. They are one of the youngest teams in the league. This is a guy that works well with DeJounte Murray. He can do a little bit of everything at the 4. So, all in all, they weren't looking for a guard here, and when you eliminate all the guards that were left on the board, this is about the only pick that could have been made.
Yeah, it was this little Dennis Rodman here, who was on the Spurs. It was different hairstyles. That's what I remember him for. But it's like you mentioned, rebuilding team. So finding that guy, and Spurs are one of the best player development. So we'll definitely see how he develops there. So at 10, the Wizards were on the clock. They went with Johnny Davis, the Taco Bell guy. So what do you think about that one?
A great commercial. Aspiring actor.
A great restaurant.
Yep, great restaurant. It was a really good pick by the Wizards. They definitely didn't need any bigs after trading for Kristaps at last year's deadline. So they were looking for a Bradley Beal fit / a bench fit in general. I think Johnny Davis is versatile. I think he could go 1 through 3 if necessary. He's got a lot of potential, but he's already ready right now, too, for a Wizards team that probably wants to compete for a playoff spot next year.
For sure.
So to help Bradley Beal right now, I really like this pick.
Yeah, it's definitely a good one.
So at 11, New York Knicks were drafting, and they ended up trading this pick. It was our first draft night trade. But let me run it down real quick.
I'm going to cut.
So the Knicks ended up trading this pick. They traded it to the Oklahoma City Thunder. In return, they got 3 first-round picks from the Thunder. They got next year's first-round pick from Detroit, next year's first-round pick from Washington, and next year's first-round pick from Denver. All of them have some type of protections on them. I don't think they're crazy protections.
Well,
I don't know them off the top of my head.
I never really heard the protections myself, but I heard it might have been on the broadcaster. They were mentioning that they're probably not going to be getting the first round picks. They're probably going to turn into seconds. So I don't know how much of a stock that really is getting back in that case then, but if they do end up getting the first round picks, I mean, it's obviously good.
Yeah, this was a weird night for the Knicks.
Mm-hmm.
Knicks are gonna nick, I guess. I don't know. I
Fans
don't know
weren't
what
too
the thought
happy.
process was necessarily. At the same time, if they didn't love anyone on the board, can't go wrong by stashing future assets. Because they have a lot of pieces, they have a little bit of cap space. They're probably looking to build more out of free agency. So I guess they just didn't love any guy on the board here.
Yeah, well, I think it was more of they seem to be heavily targeting Brunson in free agency, so that seems to be the target, and they cleared up space and ended up sending Kemba Walker with the 13th pick. Or they ended up in a 3-team trade, sending Kemba to Detroit. We'll get into that at 13, but I think this 11 spot was more of the guy that got taken was Ousmane Dieng by OKC, and he's definitely not a ready now player. He's coming from overseas. He's kind of a wild card, so it's not a Knicks type player right now.
Yeah, and I guess if you look at the guys available, it was a lot of centers that they didn't necessarily need left, and a lot of project guys, or not like full project, but not like day one going to be in your starting lineup or anything like that. So again, not the worst thing in the world. Kind of a tough spot here, drafting at 11. I don't know. We'll see. They had another pick at 12 then, right after. They drafted Jalen Williams out of Santa Clara. In all reality, a good pick. Thunder are just stashing up young guys now. At some point, I don't know how they're going to find enough minutes for all these guys, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, it's just that starting to get those those junior high players are coming in finally from all these these trades and draft picks they've been stacking up. But like you mentioned, they're getting a lot of them, so they're building a little bit of a squad. But we'll see where that gets them here in the next couple of years. But I feel like Jaden Williams is solid for the spot. You know, he's coming from Santa Clara, so that's a little bit unproven, but he's definitely an athlete, and he fits in, I think, nice with these guys they've picked. And then 13, we kind of mentioned the trade. The Knicks ended up getting this pick somehow. I don't know the exact trade, but this was a little.
I'm pretty sure the Knicks got this pick from their trade at 11 that they made.
Yeah, so
And
somehow
they flipped it to Charlotte.
Yeah. So somehow they got the 13th pick from Charlotte, and it ended up being Jalen Duren, and they ended up sending it with Kemba Walker to Detroit. So I feel like this is definitely a really good pick for Detroit. You know, getting a big man to come in there with your new backcourt of Cade and Ivy. He's definitely a defensive presence, and I think that's going to be good for them.
Yeah, I want to go on a quick aside about the Thunder. I kind of have a gripe because at some point, if you have all of these young guys, I feel like it's difficult to determine which ones are more promising than others. But you have your guys like Shea that you know are really good, but then it's like, okay, am I going to invest in Trey Mann or my new guard I just drafted? Am I going to invest in Darius Baisley or the new forward I just drafted? I feel like at some point it's difficult, but, you know, I hope they figure it out over there. But anyway, so moving on. So Pistons got that. Knicks dumped Kemba Walker. All in all, everybody got what they wanted out of it. Knicks clear up some cap space for free agency. Moving on to 14, Cleveland Cavaliers were on the clock, and they drafted Ochai Agbaji out of Kansas.
Yes, I loved this one. I did think it was kind of interesting that they on the broadcast were talking about how he's going to slide in as this 3-and-D guy, and I was like, well, could have swore they just had a guy named Isaac Okoro that kind of was that guy, but definitely love it still. Like they mentioned, he is a 3-and-D guy probably in the league, but he probably is going to fit in well there with the Garland and Sexton, and even then, if they end up not keeping Sexton, you can still run Garland, Ochai, and Okoro together. So
Yeah, when I saw this pick at first, I kind of thought, oh no, there goes Okoro. Because I feel like they're going to want to keep Sexton. I feel like there's a chance even they try to move on from Okoro. Because there's a chance Abaji's just a taller and better shooter Okoro. Okoro's not a bad shooter by any means, but he's not lights out. Agbaji has the chance to be a 40% three-point guy. He's I think he's 6'8", I believe, at least 6'7". So he's a very solid, at least 3 height, and can guard 3s and 4s very well. Okoro's problem was he couldn't guard some of the bigger guys, even for his defensive capabilities. And that doesn't help in a team with Colin Sexton and Darius Garland. So this is a pick that definitely needed to be made, and we'll see what they do with Okoro moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. I think even in today's NBA, you could see him slide into a 4 here and there, and you could run Mobley at the 5. But they're starting to get some pieces, and I feel like this was a great pick there. And then that was the end of the lottery, but we'll bring up 15 real quick. I liked what the Hornets did trading 13 because they could still go get their guy at 15.
Exactly.
They ended up getting Mark Williams from Duke, who's a huge lob threat. Definitely going to be some lobs from LaMelo to him coming forward, but I definitely love going back to that trading the 13th pick. Duren's a great player, but he did not fit, in my opinion, as good as Mark Williams does on that team.
Yeah, Mark Williams might step in day one and take the starting spot, and he'll know his role. And Jalen Duren might be a guy that will want significant touches from time to time. Mark Williams knows he's a rim protector, he's a lob threat, he's a screen setter, and that's all of that is fine, and he'll do his job really well. So hopefully the Hornets found their center to pair with LaMelo for a couple of years, and we'll see how that goes. So on the clock for number 16, and we'll roll through the rest of the first round pretty quick here, and then we'll talk about some winners and losers and some trades and stuff. Drafting 16 was the Hawks, and they took A.J. Griffin out of Duke. Kind of took a slide. He was projected 10 to 12 in most drafts, but took a little slide here.
Yeah, I feel like he's a good pick for them. He might be a little bit of a question mark injury wise because he had some problems at Duke, but he's probably a definite lottery talent. You know, if you get all you can out of him, and probably fits well with that Hawks team.
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of upside. I like the pick there.
Yeah.
Drafting 17, Houston Rockets. They took Tari Eason out of LSU. 6'8", 6'9", power forward. Probably a really good pick for him. Jabari Smith will obviously probably get a starting role, but he could be off the bench. He could be really good too. Athletic, can shoot the ball a little bit. Pretty good pick for the Rockets.
Yeah, I think he's definitely more of a defender. He can defend up and down pretty well. So, like you said, it's a really good pick for some bench minutes for sure. And then 18 was Dalen Terry from Arizona. Probably going to slide in on the bench, get some bench minutes for the Bulls. And then 19 was Timberwolves. They ended up trading this to Memphis. And Memphis gets Jake LaRavia out of Wake Forest. So
at the time, I saw a lot of people say Memphis, because Memphis traded 2 picks. I think it was 22 and 29.
Yes.
Yeah, 22 and 29. I saw a lot of people at the time saying they just don't want 2 rookie contracts they have to pay. Which made sense until they then drafted for pick number 23.
Yeah, they traded for 23.
So went out the window.
Yeah, they definitely must have liked LaRavia there for, whatever fit. But yeah, it was one of 2 trades they ended up making. Well, actually 3 on the night, but 2 first-round ones. So at 20, the Spurs got Malachi Branham, which I love because I feel like he could have definitely went higher. And I feel like he's definitely going to develop well. Like I mentioned, the Spurs in their previous pick, I feel like they'll develop these guys really good.
Spurs is a good spot for him for sure.
Yeah, and then 21, the Nuggets got Christian Braun from Kansas, defending champ. So
yeah, maybe a little bit high according to mock drafts at least, but I kind of like it just for the fact he's older. He's an experienced guy, obviously now. It's a Nuggets team that's looking to compete next year with Michael Porter Jr., Jamal Murray's supposed to be coming back. So Christian Braun could work his way into an 8th-man role off the bench, a guard off the bench. And that's probably better than a project. Well, it's definitely better than a project pick at this point. So.
Yeah, for sure.
I like it.
Yeah, and then
drafting 22 was the Grizzlies then?
Yeah.
Oh, no, sorry.
No, they traded. This was the 19 trade, so.
The Minnesota. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Minnesota was drafting here, and they took Walker Kessler out of Auburn. Big 7'1" center. Really, really good shot blocker. Has showed some touch in the mid-range, potentially 3, and might develop that later in his career. Probably will step into the backup center role instantly, I would think. They're probably going to move on from Naz Reid, so pretty good pick here.
Yeah, he had a historic block season in college, so it'll be interesting to see how his defense translates into the NBA. So then, like we mentioned, the Grizzlies ended up trading for 23 as well from the Sixers. And they got David Roddy from Colorado State. This one was a little bit of a question mark for me for a fit-wise.
Yeah, I have to think they're preparing for the worst in free agency as far as the bench guards that they might have to pay.
Yeah.
I just have to imagine they're thinking maybe they don't get Tyus Jones back. Ended up sending in this trade to Anthony Melton to the Sixers.
Yeah, that was a little bit of pain, you know. It was a little bit of a bias. My bias towards Memphis. I've loved watching Melt the last few years, but Yeah, I just it was a little bit of a question mark. I definitely feel like they're this, like you mentioned, definitely preparing for Tyus to leave. So
Yeah, and Grizzlies got Danny Green, who tore his ACL in the playoffs, so probably won't play all season. So it's a little bit of a salary dump too for the Sixers. DeAnthony Melton might be really nice on that team too as a backup guard.
yeah,
To Tyrese
I think he
and
will.
Harden. So gives them a defensive presence for sure.
Yeah.
So drafting 24 was the Milwaukee Bucks. They went with, I'll be honest, I don't fully know how to pronounce this name.
I got you. It's Marjan Beauchamp.
Beauchamp.
I've actually heard multiple pronunciations even on TV, but I believe it's that.
But
anyway, he's very one of the best stories in the draft. He was played for G League Ignite last year, but before that he was even questioning not playing basketball anymore. He went to an Arizona high school, prep school, and then went to a community college back home. He moved back home, and it's just an interesting story. Definitely need to go check it out if you don't know. But at 24, I feel like this is a pretty good pick for the Bucks. He's got some definite upside.
And I think if he's good enough late in the year, he could get in the rotation for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I like the pick. Spurs drafted at 25. They drafted Blake Wesley out of Notre Dame. I'll be honest, I don't even remember him seeing play in the tournament. So nothing on it.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those guys that's probably had a good tournament, or but I just never really got much out of him, or never heard much of his name. So, but I mentioned it previously. Spurs, they develop good, so they probably saw something in him.
So drafting 26 was supposed to be Dallas, but they traded it a few nights ago for Christian Wood. So then the Rockets then traded it on draft night to the Timberwolves. The Rockets got back the 29th pick and 2 future seconds. Timberwolves used their previously traded 29 from Memphis. Lot to follow here. Got 29 from Memphis. They moved back up to 26. And they take Wendell Moore Jr. here, which is a really good pick and a really solid fit for the Timberwolves team.
Yeah, it's another Duke guy. This is 4th Duke player, I believe, out of 5 on the night. But yeah, definitely a good pick, and slid a little bit more than I expected personally.
Yeah, I mean, potentially has lottery talent there too. So to get him all the way down at 26, really good.
Yeah.
So Miami Heat drafting 27. They took the MVP wannabe, I guess. Well, that's a little harsh, but Nikola Jovic, Jovic, not Jokic.
He was actually not drafted during the commercial break, so he's already doing better.
Exactly. So maybe he'll win MVP even quicker. But I don't know. Definitely don't know much about him. So
yeah, it's another one of those guys.
Know what they're doing, I'm assuming. So good pick, Heat.
Yeah, and then 28, the Warriors were up, and they got Patrick Baldwin Jr. out of Milwaukee. He was a very high rated player out of his high school class, but he went to play for his dad at a not very well-known school of Milwaukee, and did not have a very good year, but definitely another upside pick for the Warriors there. He could slide in pretty well with them, I think, in the future. They don't really obviously need a now guy, so I feel like this was a good pick at that spot.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised they didn't trade this pick, but at the same time, when you draft a guy, it doesn't mean you can't trade him 2 weeks later. So, regardless, it's an asset for them. They took the biggest upside guy there that might be valued high in trades. So, Grizzlies then were drafting 29. Well, no, this was Houston. I apologize.
This was Grizzlies 2, Minnesota 2, Houston.
Trades. And they drafted Ty Washington out of Kentucky. solid pick at the spot.
Yeah, yeah, he's probably I feel like him and Porter for Houston will be a little bit similar. Ty is probably a better passer, but they're both very explosive and fast guys. So that was interesting. Technically, the second guy from Kentucky in the first round, even though some people are not saying Shaden Sharp's a UK guy. I might mention that something about that a little bit later. Got a little bit of a dig at some UK fans after last night, but anyway, Ty 29 was another good one. Fits probably good with Houston, and then rounding out the end was the Thunder traded to Denver. So Denver, they took Peyton Watson, who was not even in a starting rotation for the UCLA this year, but definitely an athlete, and Denver also not in a huge win now, or not win now, but not in a mode to pick a guy that they need to contribute now. So this is another upside future guy. So he could end up blossoming and being a rotation player, but likely an investment for the future for Denver.
And then real quick, I'm gonna fly through the 4 picks at the start of the second round. A bunch of guys you may have heard from the tournament. They all went deep into the tournament. They might make an instant impact. Pacers at 31 drafted Andrew Nembhard out of Gonzaga. Old guy, knows what he's doing, so that's good. Orlando Magic drafted Caleb Houston out of Michigan. He could step in day one, get some minutes. Toronto Raptors drafted Christian Coloco, big man out of Arizona. So Raptors are just stacking up big men at this point. And then at 34, OKC Thunder drafted Jalen Williams out of Arkansas. Might be a pretty good fit, along with Chet even. So,
Their second Jalen Williams of the night.
And Jalen Williams, the taller.
They got both of them. Yeah. So definitely some interesting picks there. My I don't know if I've mentioned this on the show actually, but I worked with the EYBL team, UPoy Canada, a couple summers ago, and 31 and 32 were former UPoy products, both Canadians, and Shaden Sharp was also another UPoy guy. So just a little shout out, So that was cool to see. Also good picks for those teams, I believe. Guys that could have went first and fell to second. So.
Absolutely.
So my Lakers ended up trading into the second round. This was their only pick of the night. They took Max Christie from Michigan State. I don't know what to think about this one yet. He's not a shooter, so that's already like,
Perfect.
He's just. It'll be interesting. He could end up, giving us some minutes, but it was a questionable spot, especially with guys like Jaden Hardy still up there.
So moving on, go down the line a little bit to 37. My Mavericks on the board. They took Jaden Hardy, a guy that some mock drafts had him as high as 20-ish. So he took a steep drop here. Like it for the Mavs. If they end up losing Jalen Brunson, he's a guy that can step right in, fill that role. Has showed a lot of potential in the G League, so I like that for my Mavs for sure.
Yeah. And then 38, the Memphis Grizzlies ended up trading into this to get their guy Kennedy Chandler, friends with Ja.
Pretty hard call, honestly.
Yeah. Friends with Ja. He might be from Memphis. I don't know. He played at Tennessee. Like their first round picks, this is another guard that they could bring in. This is I feel like this is the DeAnthony Melton replacement right here. So, I liked that, and then we could move. 40 was Bryce McGowan's from Nebraska, good player. Ended up going to Charlotte. 41 was EJ Liddell, definitely slid a little bit, I believe, from Ohio State. And
I like it for the Pelicans took that pick too. I like it because he's a day one guy also that could help.
Yeah,
day one
for sure.
Well,
more veteran guy too. 42, the Knicks Knicks actually took this pick, and they took Trevor Keels from Duke, another Duke
all
guy.
the Duke guys.
Yeah, another Duke guy. And then a lot of these picks in the second round, these overseas guys are probably going to be some stash guys. You won't see them for a couple of years. They'll be still overseas. But then 49, this was an interesting one. Caught my attention.
I think a pick that had to be made.
The Cavs ended up picking up the other Mobley. They got Isaiah Mobley. Perfect front court pairing with this guy that he knows well. Evan Mobley's pretty good. So
exactly. Isaiah's actually the older brother, but he stayed all 4 years at college. And
I thought it was 3.
They're back together. Yeah.
I think it was his junior year.
Yep.
But yeah, ended up staying longer. Evan was one and done, I believe. So stayed longer. Actually, the older brother. So he's gonna try and come in and be better than little bro, but he's got some big shoes to fill. But I feel like
a lot of guys, Jared Allen and them too. So
yeah, 38 and 49 felt like some just appreciation picks, like
had to be done,
had to be made. Ja probably called up the GM and said, "You gotta go get Kennedy, you gotta go get him," and the Cavs, Evan Mobley probably called him up and said, "You got to go get big bro. Like, it's got to happen." So,
you want me to sign a contract after my rookie contract? You go get it.
I'm not sure if that was the Ja. I don't know if that was his negotiation, but yeah. As soon as he got taken and they showed his draft party, he was wearing a Memphis hat, and I was like, "Ain't no way they traded for that, right?" And they did. So. Ended up getting him, and that's their hometown guy, friends with Ja, so that's going to be cool to see. And obviously, you got to take Mobley if you're the Cavs, right?
So the last big name guy that kind of got taken is J.D. Davison at 53 to the Celtics out of Alabama. It's a guard that might help him. If he develops quickly, he could even step into some Peyton Pritchard role. We talked about they wanted to be a little more athletic on the bench, probably, so it could help him out potentially. Milwaukee had to forfeit their second-round pick for tampering in free agency.
Tampering with a guy they didn't end up getting.
Yeah. So, and Miami also had to forfeit their second-round pick for tampering in free agency. So
yeah, this is
only 58 picks.
I feel like that was the first time I've heard of that or noticed it actually being a thing. But I did want to mention the Bucks were tampering with Bogdanovich. It was the Kings, I believe. Ended up going to the Hawks. So, and then the Heat was they were tampering with Kyle Lowry. Ended up still getting him.
So to wrap things up, we're going to talk about some winners and losers of draft night in total. Make some predictions in the future. So to start off, say my winner of the night's probably the Pistons. There's a few that had really good nights, but all the Pistons get the guy they want, a little bit of free agency money to work with. So all in all, a good night.
Yeah, they got good players. Like you said, salary room. Ivy. I didn't mention this earlier, but he has some connections to Detroit already, so it's probably a community guy as well. I'd say. Aside from the Pistons, probably one for me too, but another one could be the Rockets. They got a lot of people's number one pick at 3, and they got some guys down the draft like Eason and others that definitely fit in well, Ty and them. So that's probably my other winner. I think unanimous biggest loser for a lot of people is the Knicks right now. Of course.
Is that like 5 of the past 6 years?
it's a common thing, but I feel like this might change. If this draft or if this salary cap they freed up ends up coming back to like a Brunson. Obviously this draft was a little bit more of a success than they.
For sure.
It was freeing up space probably is their biggest goal right now. So I feel like success internally for them, but the fans are not very happy. So Well, I don't know Knicks fans that are always happy or at all, but Stephen A. Smith was falling apart on TV, so it was typical Knicks night.
Yeah, I think the Spurs won draft night too. They get a guy
Hmm.
at pretty much every position and really good guys that they can develop, some that are already proven. I think also the Pelicans had a good night. They have a really good second round pick, and if get a good second round pick too, that's kind of a fall pick / ready day one, probably had a good night. So
Yeah, it's another good one.
so let's make rookie of the year predictions.
Yeah. Well, I think I really like Paulo Banquero, and he doesn't have a ton of people around him to take away touches at this point. I mean, him and Suggs could run together pretty well. But I'm going to go out there and I'm going to say Jaden Ivey. I think he's going to be a perfect fit up there. The only problem with that is there's a lot more touches being distributed around for him. So, that'll be interesting. But I like Ivy, and sleeper Shaden Sharp. Watch out.
So if I was picking just straight up, I will go with Paolo. I think he's going to have a lot of touches. Um, be able to play defensively, be able to play on the ball some. So I'd go that deep sleeper. Maybe this isn't super deep, but I'll go all the way down to Johnny Davis with the Wizards. He has a chance to start games, not right away, but month into the season, depending on injuries, whatever else. I think if he gets rolling, he may really get rolling. He may become a quick 15-5-5 type guy. He plays pretty solid defense too, and might be the guy too that kind of propels them into a playoff spot. I think he'll have a huge impact immediately. I think, like you said, I think Shaden Sharp will have a huge impact immediately for their team. I think Keegan Murray might get the Kings straight into a play-in type situation. It'll be interesting which of these guys too elevate their team from lottery to, hey, we at least want to make the play-in this year. So.
Yeah, this draft was definitely very deep. A lot of guys are upside picks, and a lot of guys are going to come in immediately. So it was a very deep class. A lot of stories, and I did want to mention a couple of my favorite stories of the night. Was I mentioned it a little bit before, but Beauchamp for the Bucks, his story's amazing. The emotion he was showing was crazy. Couldn't hold it in at all, and a lot of those guys, this is changes their life. So that was one of my favorite stories, and Jaden Ivey's story was also good. His mom, being such an inspiration, and she's the Notre Dame women's coach. If any of you didn't know, another guy that was wearing his emotions on his sleeve last night, and that was good to see. I feel like you love seeing those moments every year, but this year those two stuck out to me. So.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fun night for sure. It's we'll be looking back 10 years from now, and one of these guys will be a perennial all-star looking to solidify themselves in history. It's just the start for them. I really think some of these guys will make instant impacts for sure. So.
Yep, it's definitely gonna be fun to watch. We'll come back. We might revisit this draft a little bit next year, or mid-season, see how these guys are performing. But like I mentioned, a lot of guys that are going to come in and have some very huge roles going forward. So
I feel like it's a really transition year as far as the draft goes. It was hard to draft this year. There was a lot of G League guys, a lot of overseas guys, a lot of guys taken in between years. That's only going to continue more. Next year's draft looks hectic already. A lot of guys, they said 4 of the top 5 projected right now will not be playing college. That'll be the first time ever if that happens. More and more overseas guys every day. More and more guys going to the G League, to prep schools, stuff like that. So draft is only going to get more wild in the upcoming years. So
Yeah.
it'll be fun. Oh, we're glad you guys joined us for this episode. We're going to come out with some more MLB, some more NBA free agency stuff. If you're still watching, hit that subscribe for us. Tell your friends. We appreciate you guys. Peace out.